is going on? My name is Jonathan. This is Comic Book Cinema, and today we're going to discuss Batman Returns, the sequel to Tim Burton's legendary first Batman film that changed the game entirely in 1989. This sequel came out in 92. I think that a few members in the group might not have been out of their mother's womb yet at this point. I know I'm a late 80s child. Luke and Shane, were you guys born in 92 yet?
Luke was born in 91.
Oh.
I was born in 92.
How about that?
He is correct.
You young bucks here that I have on the show with me today. 92, I think at that point, Batmania was just in full effect. I know it was for me at least. My 4th birthday was literally everything Batman. The toys from this film, you know, the Batmobile, the Penguin action figures. I even had those little penguins from this film that were decked out in the, you know, the little rockets and everything were strapped to their backs. I had a lot of Batman memorabilia, and I think that that's quite possibly what kicked off my fandom for comic book cinema, if you will. With all that being said, we'll just start things off a little slow, and we'll start with Penguin's origin. How well do you think that was done on the film, guys?
Me personally, not knowing anything about the Penguin prior to seeing that movie, and I remember like as a kid watching it and thinking it was scary, like very scary. I mean, the Penguin particularly, you know, but and also thought it was kind of weird that it was a little gruesome. And apparently I learned later that they got a lot of controversy for that. But nonetheless, I liked it because it was Batman. You know what I'm saying? I'm sold on this because I love Batman. I had Batman in my heart.
They threw a child in a wicker bassinet into the freezing cold lake around Christmas time. Like it was gonna float.
You're like,
there was a lot of dark themes in this film for sure. And like you said, the violence, the sexual innuendo, the language. I mean, was this film PG or is PG-13, right?
I think it's PG-13.
I think it was PG-13.
Yeah,
so that makes more sense.
The King Christopher Walken and the character he played, I guess his name, what was it? Shreck?
Max
Or
Shreck.
like that? Yeah,
Max
so I thought that was weird. Like when he pushed the old girl out the window, I was like, this is wild. Like this came out in 92 and this guy was just like, I'm Christopher Walken. I'm pushing Michelle Pfeiffer out of a window. And that's crazy to me to think of that as an adult, that they could just get away with making a movie like that. But clearly it was a problem.
If that movie came out today, there's no way that her metamorphosis wouldn't have happened before that. Like in the meeting, in the beginning, like there's no way she would have made it to getting pushed out of the window. The entire scenario was so like, it felt like watching a time capsule of the 50s, the way that they interacted with her in the beginning of the movie.
I think that was intentional, by the way. I think they really wanted to make a point about, you know, like women in the workplace or what have you. And I could be wrong, but I feel like that there was probably a piece of that intended to be, which to be fair, it is a good point. If it's, you know, if something like what was happening in that movie was happening, those guys need to be taken down by Batman or the feds. I'm just saying.
100% agree. I really think this movie should have been named Catwoman because she's the only one who had any character development in the entire thing. Everybody else was completely two-dimensional, especially Batman. I mean, literally nothing happened with him the entire movie. But I may be getting ahead of of myself. But I cannot get over the scene where she starts making her costume. What is her tongue doing? I thought that it was going to turn into venom and like just wrap her around her entire face. Anyway, the overall theme of this movie was just so slapstick. I mean,
yes,
everything was so like one-liner. To answer your question about the origin of Penguin, I mean, number one, had nothing to do with the real Penguin. What is this? If you look at any picture of him in any of the comics, he had all his fingers. And this is not even a penguin. This isn't even what a penguin has. This is a crab. So I don't even, it was just like.
You can't tell us how he was born and how he got to the sewer and then tell us that he's got, you know, whatever that is going on there. Like, so he just turned into a penguin? Like
flippers, as he referred to them in the film. Obviously, Burton took a lot of liberties with the character of Penguin in this movie. And I really didn't mind it. I thought it was a different take. You know, he made him very animalistic and gave him the flippers, you know. And
what are you talking about? Danny DeVito was just Danny DeVito with purple stuff or green stuff coming out of his mouth.
He was the same guy
from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in this movie. That
I'm
is
the trash
exactly. He's
man.
not changed in like however many years.
It's funny you bring up him specifically, like the actor. I brought up, to a coworker a few days back. Somehow Danny DeVito got brought up. And the first thing my coworker said, he was like, I hate that guy. And I was like, why do you hate Danny DeVito? And he's like, well, every time I think of Danny DeVito, I think of him playing the Penguin in that movie and just how off-putting he was and disgusting, and just he used a lot of different adjectives to describe Vito. But that's telling to me. His performance in this film, was very impactful, in my opinion. It was very like it or not, and cheesiness or not, yeah, whatever. But it was a very lasting, I guess is the word that I would use. Like it made an impact, for better or worse. It was very memorable. Like I said, it may not be too faithful to the comics and the source material, but it was kind of Burton's own thing, and it was very, if anything, this film, just like the first Batman film, is very, very Tim Burton.
You know what else was memorable? The first Suicide Squad. And it wasn't memorable for a good reason. I just could not disagree more with how crappy this Penguin was. Literally, his character was just a guy with claws in a potato sack. Penguin is supposed to be this strategic guy, right? He's like this crime boss. I mean, I guess he did have like 3 stages to his plan in this movie, where first, he was just trying to get the public to feel sorry for him so that he could get access to the records, the city records, and then it becomes kind of nebulous, so that he could get the list of the firstborn sons of everyone in Gotham. And then it was time to kill Christopher Walken and kill all the sons of Gotham. It became really unclear. But, I guess you could say that was strategic. But really, he just seemed like, this animalistic character with no real control over his actions. Like, his interactions with Catwoman were about like a 3rd grader who just met like a woman for the first time. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that was
I'll agree with that.
Built in.
It seems like it's almost on brand, just for the fact that like back then, like we probably are so used to like stories that are just so, intertwined and deep and have more things at this point. By the way, we consume stuff that is like that. It's like this is almost like playing a game like on Atari versus like playing a game on PlayStation 2. It's like it's completely different. The Penguin, did you ever see Gotham? Anybody ever watch the show Gotham?
Yes.
Okay, Penguin on there is completely different, obviously, from this Penguin. But to me, it seems like, okay, I had a complaint about the way that he opened it, like the way that they're like, oh, hey, look, I rose up this little baby. Like clearly he hired the guy to steal the baby and then jump down the sewer. And then he's like, oh no, please, guy that is a penguin, don't kill me. Like it just seemed like a play.
Mastermind.
It seemed like some kind of a play that was just unfolding. But I have to give it credit for the time, because was there any kind of film of Batman other than the old TV series at that point? Is that all they had to play off of? Because it was kind of corny.
Also, that was the sequel to the first Tim Burton Batman film that came out 3 years prior.
Right. That corny type of like, oh, like people are not going to fall for that. There's no reality in the fact, like there's a whole group of people, press and who's who and what have you, and they just see Cobbleplot come up out of it and they're like, oh my gosh, they're acting like the Who's in like Whoville or something, as opposed to acting like civilians of a city.
Can we take a moment and just talk about the casting of Max Shreck's son, Chip? That guy's like a massive human being, and they picked that guy to play his son, not like a goon or anything else, just some dumb son is like, gee whiz, Dad. He was in the program before. He was a football player. Like that guy was on roids and just jacked up, and you're like, put him in a suit and make him the dumb kid. Like I didn't get that. That blew my mind.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
That guy was enormous.
I can hear the complaints, and I totally agree with them, really. I mean, honestly, when I talk about Danny DeVito as the Penguin, I'm just talking about the moments that he created, the look. What scared you, Shane, when you were a kid, when you were watching this film?
Yeah, this is what I was going to say was basically with the Penguin himself, that has been my standard. And that's why all of them, despite the fact there have been other versions, you know, watching some of the animated stuff growing up for sure, but like, and just all this different versions of them, to me, the standard is Danny DeVito's, because that's terrifying to me, and a villain should be scary to an extent.
Yeah.
In most cases like that.
This movie is by no means Citizen Kane. It is very, and it's just like the first Tim Burton film. The grand scheme of the villain is about the dumbest crap that you're ever going to see. The same with the Joker in the first film, where his giant plan was to poison all of Gotham in this parade. You know, it was just very over the top. When you look at the time period, all they had before that was, like you said, Shane, the 60s show.
Right.
So they were trying to take all of that and bring it in a more serious direction, which I think that they very much did with these two films. Now, after Tim Burton and Michael Keaton left in this film, and then going into 3 and 4, that's when things started to go really downhill and back to the whole like campy stuff.
We've definitely had a conversation about this before.
Oh yeah, honestly, yeah. The film does not hold up well at all, and I'm not trying to defend it in any way. I'm just saying that I think that what Danny DeVito did as the Penguin was, at the very least, memorable. So
absolutely, sure, definitely.
The Penguin funeral was great. When they slowly slid him into the water.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I laughed for like 15 minutes when I saw that. I was like, they are not even trying to make it look like those penguins are moving his body. They're just like, look, just trust us. This is the concept we're trying to relay. The penguins are putting his body into the water. Turn your brain off.
Yeah.
It looks, I mean, I know they didn't have access to the, kind of technology that we did today. And honestly, I thought some of that was cool. Like the little duckmobile, was kind of an interesting, I actually liked that they went out of the way and made something like that. That scene, I'm so glad that was at the end of the movie, because it just encapsulates the whole thing. Like,
it was so dramatic at first too. His death scene was just so dramatic, and spitting all over himself, and then just down, and then the penguins come out and march him into the water.
To me, it was crazy. It's like the very first scene. Of course, you got Pee Wee Herman dropping the kid over the bridge or whatever, and then he goes down. And it's like it closes out and goes into something else after it just shows like the behind side of the penguins looking at the baby like, we're mischievous penguins. We will raise you to be our own. It was funny. I mean, but whatever. I was like, dang.
Very outlandish, very cheesy, for sure.
There was definitely a strong theme of the animals who represented each of these characters. Yeah. Catwoman was licking Batman's face. If anything, bats were the one who pushed Penguin to his demise, which I don't remember that, like, I guess that happens sometimes in the comics, but that wasn't like a very strong element in the comics to my memory. And then, the Penguin had all these freaking penguins. Speaking of the bats pushing Penguin off, there wasn't very much combat in this movie. I don't know if that was similar in the first one, but it really was a lot of drama and theatrics. But Batman didn't really kick that much.
This is something I will say. And, I can hear you there a little bit, Luke, as far as, lack of action. But, for its time, this honestly had a little bit more action than the first Tim Burton Batman film in a lot of ways. You got a lot of action with the Batmobile. I love the look of the Batmobile, by the way. I mean, it looks absolutely phenomenal, just as great as it did in the first Tim Burton film. Love the bat suit. It looks slightly different, slightly modified from the first Burton film. That's one thing that I love about this movie. I think that bat is a miracle worker, because it took someone like Michael Keaton, who is literally the size of me and Shane, and made this dude look bigger and taller and everything else. I mean, I guess high heels isn't something that's super hard to implement in the suit, but the suit itself it just made him look larger than life. I thought that was great. I love the costume. I love the look. What do you guys think?
I didn't like at the end how he just ripped it off like it was nothing. Like he just, this just comes right off. Just tore it right off the neck.
Yeah.
That was odd and out of character. Like he was like this indestructible fighting machine, and all of a sudden, if you guys would have just grabbed here, this just rips right off.
It also made no sense in the movie.
Yeah,
made no sense. They had all him and Catwoman already knew who they were. I mean, he really only revealed himself to Penguin, which
Shreck
he had no motivation to do at that point. I mean,
it's Shreck. Shreck was there. Christopher
Okay,
Walken.
Shreck. Yeah, I mean, even worse. Which caused Shreck to kill, well, you know, in real world, kill Catwoman. I mean, or at least, look, I don't know how much time lagged between when he shot Catwoman and when she was seen right after that in the snow or whatever, but trust me, she was walking around with a colostomy. But that's a discussion for another time.
I will say the Catwoman thing is crazy. Obviously, to the point of just how wild it was. Me watching it again recently and seeing old dude Christopher Walken, who looks incredibly young, by the way, in this film. I guess he is much younger, but
Yeah.
he looks sharp. I'm just saying, his hair looks nuts. But Christopher Walken is always. I always thought he was a cool old dude, but he is, you know, tight. I digress. He pushes the woman out the window, and it's like, oh my gosh, bro, what? Like she was, you know, a homely, mildly psychotic girl that, you know, she just was trying to help. And they were like, earlier in the movie when they're like, she makes a hell of a cup of coffee. I'm just like, oh my goodness, man. Like what in the world? Like the RV is so mean to this woman. Anyway, goes on and she gets pushed out of a window, somehow lives. I get it. She fell through the little curtains or whatever. She lives and the cats come up and eat her. She hasn't even been dead for like 20 minutes. And they just start go down, like just savagely devour, try to
There's
devour
a cat problem around here. Yeah.
yeah, like where do all these cats come from, bro? Like the rat should have came first if it was that serious. That next scene, I guess, like as Luke was referred to, where she's like making her suit and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, like where's the ink? I feel like I should be hearing, "No, give a about my reputation." Like this, like her spraying the spray can. It's like you don't look seriously mad at all. I don't know if we were I'm going on a tangent about Catwoman, but you know. Carry on.
No, that's good. I think that we should talk a little bit about, you know, Selina Kyle as played by Michelle Pfeiffer. This was actually the third interpretation of Catwoman on the screen at that point, because, you know, previously we had Catwoman played by two different actresses in the 60s. I forget both their names. It's three. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. It was Eartha Kitt.
Lee Merriweather was another one everybody forgets about.
Who?
Lee Merriweather. She actually played Lily Munster too.
That's right. And then Eartha Kitt.
And then
the only one that I knew was Eartha Kitt. But yeah, so
I'm gonna blurt it out later.
We had the character on screen before, but
Julie Newmar.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, I mean, we had the character played, you know, by three different actresses on the 60s show, but that was a whole different thing. And you know, this is kind of the first big screen appearance that we got from the character of Catwoman. I think that she did a really good job. There was a lot more room for open interpretation, and you didn't really have to think so much about what had come before at this point. Nowadays, you know, like for instance, Zoe Kravitz, the newest actress that has portrayed Catwoman on the big screen, she probably thought, okay, so Anne Hathaway played Catwoman, you know, then you have Michelle Pfeiffer. She probably was thinking about all these different versions and, you know, probably using some of that for inspiration. But at this time, I think that you could say that most of what we got was straight from Michelle Pfeiffer's brain, possibly. Or, you know, a lot to do with Tim Burton as well. I mean, he was the director, but I thought it was good. I mean, you know, like anything else in this film, there was a lot of cringy and cheesy moments. Like Luke referred to earlier, you know, the dialogue between Penguin and Catwoman it was really rough. She did a good job, though. She looked good in the suit. She was convincing enough. So I thought she was a good Catwoman.
She definitely redefined the character for all of us going forward, I think, compared to like the three previous. They all really didn't use the whip or anything until she brought it in, and it carried on in the comics and stuff too. So,
and you see that a lot with films, you know, like films influence the comics a lot. You know, when you have the first major appearance of a character in a movie like this, like you said, Rick, you know, it just changes the character so much in the comics. We've seen that with the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, lots of other characters in the comics are changed forever when we see them on the first time on the big screen.
She's definitely hard to forget, just like Danny DeVito. Obviously not as bad, but completely unrealistic in any way.
So something I want to throw out there that I never noticed. This is maybe like a small Easter egg. It's probably something that's been known for 20 plus years, but I'm throwing it out there because I noticed it by myself on my own when I was watching the film. Her little neon sign said "Hello there," and when she broke two of the bulbs, it turned into "Hell here." I thought that was pretty cool. You know, like I had never seen that pointed out in any type of Easter egg video. However, I've never really, I'll confess, I don't think I've ever, did a deep dive or delve into Batman Returns on YouTube or anything. But another thing I'll say too, another positive, I thought the actors and actresses that played Penguin's little circus freak misfit group, his goon squad, whatever you want to call them, were good. The female, the big fat guy was good, and then the clowns. I enjoyed that group, and the guy with the beard that had the machine gun that he pulled out. It was over the top, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it was definitely fun, like an animated show that was made real.
They were better actors than Danny DeVito. I just have to say it. I mean, Danny DeVito was just like, I felt like he was just grunting the entire movie, and then like sometimes words happened instead of grunts. And then
that.
He just had green stuff pouring out of his mouth. What even was that? Was that supposed to be his blood? Like he had green blood? Penguins don't have green blood. What are we doing?
Clean yourself up, please.
Like, there was a couple moments where I felt like the female who was like doing the countdown at the end, where she had to like correct Danny DeVito and like, hey, you're being a little crazy. Let's move forward with this part of the plan. You psycho. Again, you can romanticize Danny DeVito's performance, and that's fine. But now that we've seen him later on, which Shane, to talk about his cosmetic appearance is just absolutely ludicrous. Danny DeVito had a sharp nose that some makeup artist put together with styrofoam. I don't know, but he still was balding in the potato sack. Do you remember?
Yeah,
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was terrifying. I have expressed it several times on this podcast.
So terrifying is different than Danny DeVito was looking pretty good. For what? Like Humpty Dumpty? Anyways, I just cannot get behind Danny DeVito having any remember his interaction with Batman when Batman's driving his Batmobile and Danny DeVito's like on a video like in here and he's just like I've got you this time it looked like he was in a little Batmobile from like a mall that you put like 25 cents in and put your kid in and then like try to be happy for a couple minutes, because they're entertained. Like, it's like those goons put him in that so that they could have a moment alone without Danny DeVito.
How about the ingenuity of sewer dwellers to put that all together?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, completely unnecessary, but
Somebody get these people a home.
I remember another ridiculous thing. When they show up with the big present, in the beginning of the film, and then they start churning out the Gatling gun, Batman doesn't go to that. He goes to the guys that are literally just going around and like stealing. The first guy he actually attacks, I think stole a purse. And then there's like somebody over here like Gatling gunning a crowd. And then Batman's like, that'll figure itself out. Let me go over
He'll
here.
Run out.
And what did he used like a taser, daddy gift to daughter taser to freaking get the only guy who was like not even committing a violent crime, I don't think.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff like that in the film. I will not deny that at all. Some of the innuendo, the sexual innuendo that was in the film, like little stuff that you don't like, a child's mind obviously doesn't catch on to, but it's been a while since I've seen this film. But when he was just announced that, hey, I'm going to be running for mayor, he was talking to Max Shreck, as played by Christopher Walken, and he was looking at that chick, and he was like, I'd like to feel her void. Like, I was just like, dang, I don't remember all this stuff being in the film.
That was a constant dilemma for me psychologically to try to decide, was it a double joke where it's like, hey, this is so ridiculous that it's funny, it's so unbelievable, or was it just like, tapping into, that visceral element, of like back in that day, like, hey, guys are going to like to see him say that. I really hope that it was supposed to be like so unbelievable that it was funny, but I do wonder if they were just like Tim Burton was like, yeah, that'd be cool if Danny DeVito just freaking catcalled this girl right here in front of all these people and nobody says a thing after he bites the head off a fish, whatever.
Bet the one guy
and the nose.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he bit that guy's nose off.
Yeah.
Luke, I bet if Penguin saw you, he'd probably bite your nose off as well.
I bet if you got close enough, he'd bite off anybody's nose. We don't have a backstory to that. There's no explanation of why he does that crap.
What's that smell? Is that DeVito?
Oh jeez. Oh man. Like the whole dialogue there. We've mentioned this before, but I mean, when she puts the bird in her mouth and he grabs the cat and he's acting like he's about to stab the cat. I mean, that whole sequence was just it was pretty corny, pretty cringy.
Apparently, like it was like a huge deal about how Tim Burton, he went from the first movie and like he didn't want to do the second movie right away. Like apparently he went and did Edward Scissorhands and then they went and did this. They moved supposedly, I'm not sure if this is entirely accurate, but like they moved the whole set for Gotham and stuff, like moved it a whole across the like entire world. Like it was in Europe. The first movie, I guess, was filmed in Britain, maybe, or something like that. And then they like they set it up in Hollywood and to make it easier for Tim Burton. And Tim Burton still didn't want to do the movie. Whenever you watch that movie, I don't know exactly who it is that's responsible, if it's Tim Burton or not, but like some things in the movie remind me of, I guess it is Tim Burton that would be responsible for it, but because as I say, it reminds me of other movies that he's done. That sounds so stupid to say, but like watching Beetlejuice, and it's like, like I don't know how to explain it, like the way that the characters are and
the look and the feel, the music, everything about it. It was very, like I said earlier, it's very Tim Burton. Absolutely
animated pre-goth feel to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like to me, I almost feel like it maybe had more color in the second movie than it did versus the first one.
Yeah.
And it's like that changed a bit of the way that it was. And to me, it almost seems like a video game come to life, but not really. I know it sounds dumb to say that, like, but it is old. So I just think of it like a big play. We were talking about the people coming out with the Gatling gun at the beginning of the movie, and then how everybody's just like, ha ha ha. You would think these people would grab them and hold them down and be like, yeah, I'm about to murder you or whatever. And it's like, but they're not like, ha ha, this is the time, like Power Rangers or something. But not really. It's just interesting the way that they act like characters. You could easily see the Nightmare Before Christmas as an example, like just the darkness of or anything Tim Burton has done. Yeah, I guess it really is just
lots
Tim
of
Burton.
statues and gates.
Yeah.
I will say I've said a lot of cons about this movie. I really did enjoy that the Gotham, although it felt like a really small town. Like it felt like everything happened within like a block.
Exactly.
But I did like the aesthetic that they created. That's at least one positive I can say about this movie.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Also, Alfred was the best actor in the movie.
So you weren't a fan of Michael Keaton as Batman?
I don't feel like he did anything distinct in this movie. He kind of seemed like, I'm gosh, I gotta freaking be Batman today. And he really wasn't in the movie that much.
I was just about
It was mostly Catwoman. It was mostly Danny DeVito. We didn't see him do all that much except come in the end and then Bats beat the Penguin. I mean, I wonder if we needed him.
Yeah, but wasn't that the way they were trying to play him up as like that dark enigma that like he just shows up and then out of nowhere just beats it and goes on? That was his role, like the Dark Knight, just hiding in the dark. You didn't really want to see him as much.
Yeah, he's not as theatrical as the Penguin and Catwoman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that Michael Keaton does a really good job as Batman. He's probably my third favorite person to ever play the character. Maybe fourth, but definitely, third or fourth. I guess that's not saying a whole lot. But in this film, there's a lot of interesting decisions that were made too. At the end, the conclusion of the film, he wants to get all virtuous at the very end, even though he just murdered like at least 5 or 6 people prior to this. He doesn't want Catwoman to kill Maxwell Shreck. Like, hey, let's just bring him to jail. Let me tear off this piece of crap mask first, like Rick mentioned earlier. And then, hey,
This
let's
Ben
just take him to
Cooper
jail.
mask.
Don't kill him.
And let's go back to my
that was
house.
my whole thing, like,
I need
that's
another
my whole
hand.
thing. Like, why would you be so worried about killing this man if you literally just murdered countless people before this?
Yeah, typical DC fashion. I'm just being silly.
I mean, I didn't think it was bad, but like not memorable. Are you about to say Danny DeVito's memorable? Yeah, I know. I know you are.
Dude, listen, you read my mind. I swear on everything that I've ever known. I was going to say, look, I feel you, Luke. Danny DeVito is the only thing that has like burned himself in my brain as the Penguin. like from this film, like beyond like looking into it. And it's exciting hearing the stuff about like what was going on with Tim Burton, like reading the behind the scenes stuff, like of his mindset of wanting to do the movie or not. And it explains why that he didn't do a third one, I guess, because they did obviously kept doing Batman movies. Yeah, Penguin, you're right. Penguin.
What else would cause my 55-year-old coworker to talk about Danny DeVito in such a way about a film that he has not seen in 25, 30 years, like literally since the day that it came out? What else would draw that type of emotion out of a person? Shane referenced it earlier. He was like, this movie scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Why? Because of DeVito's performance.
It's kind of like Suicide Squad, the big flaming guy at the end. I'll always remember how stupid and out of place that was. Like I will forever remember that actor as the guy who ruined Suicide. I mean, I can't entirely put it on his shoulders.
Completely different example, because that's not anything to do with that actor. It's literally a CGI character that maybe they took motion capture from his face. But I mean, come on, Luke.
True,
you can at least admit.
Obviously a flamboyant, exaggerated comparison, but yes, Danny DeVito is memorable. Do I think that he himself did anything impressive other than to show up and act like a hooligan? No. He was memorable for the fact that he's short and fat.
That's not true at all. Okay, so with all that being said, let's give the rating for the film. If you had to rate this film on a scale from 10 to 0, 0 being awful in every way possible, 10 being perfect, I'll start. I'll give you guys a rating that you probably weren't expecting, but I have this film listed in the 3.5 to 4 range.
My gosh, are you serious?
Yes, absolutely. Because it does not hold up. Like I said, Danny DeVito turned in a memorable performance. You have, Michael Keaton's portrayal of Batman is beloved by many. It's not my favorite, but I like the look of the suit and the Batmobile. Gets a little bit of brownie points there. The music is incredible from Tim Burton. It's got that Tim Burton feel, which I love, for Batman especially. But at the end of the day, that's about the only positive stuff that you can say about this film. The plot is stupid, to say the least. The villain's grand scheme at the end of the film is ludicrous. Catwoman, Penguin, they said and did a lot of really, really cheesy stuff. This movie's dated, to say the least, so that's the absolute highest I can go is 4. What do you think, Mr. Rick?
I was going to say about a 4. I was, around at the time when it was coming out, so the hype was real for me as a kid coming off the first one. So going into the second one, it was a great build-up. Whether Danny DeVito's performance was sure or not, he's still a memorable Penguin because people do remember when you say Penguin. Not a lot of people think of Burgess Meredith. They think of Danny DeVito as Penguin. No matter what Gotham, no one really remembers Gotham. It's kind of like a one-off. Nobody thinks about that. So that point, Michelle Pfeiffer was really hot at the time. She, like we said earlier, changed the persona of Catwoman. So, I mean, I enjoyed it because, like I said, I was a kid. I was there in the middle of getting the toys and all that stuff. So the hype was real for me, and it holds like a special place for me. But yeah, does it carry on good like nowadays? No way.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4.
Can I ask what do you think you would have rated it when you saw it when it came out?
Oh, when it came out, being the age that I was, which was like 3 or 4, probably an 8 or 9. I mean,
yeah.
I think it was
in your memory after that, not as a 3 or 4-year-old. Until you rewatched it, what did you think you were going to rank it?
Oh, about the same that I rated it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently rewatched it again. I actually had it playing on the background, and yeah it doesn't hold up as well as
literally when I tell you guys the same with Rick. I had Batman Returns bed sheets, like the curtain that goes on the outside of the bed too. I had a movie poster that was framed. I had all the action figures, all the toys, a video game on Sega Genesis that I played all the time.
Yeah,
it was Batman Returns, the video game. So I mean, I was obsessed with Batman. So at that time, yes, this was this was the Avengers back in 1992. Okay,
yeah.
Well, movie with Catwoman and Batman, all these characters coming together. This was the Avengers back in 1992, like I said. But now it's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw this movie as a kid, and I really didn't remember much coming into it. So it's hard for me. I think I remembered it fondly, but I had already made a decision about 10 minutes into this movie. I mean, this was not a B movie, not even a C movie, right? If I couldn't, like, the only reason that I would complete this movie is to talk about it on this podcast. I would give this a 3, and I consider that to be generous. It just hasn't aged well. I don't remember what movies were like in that era, but now rewatching it at this point, I mean, it was just absolute tragedy. It's worse than one of those movies that you would watch on Sci-Fi, like those just random movies that come on. Like,
Wow.
have you ever heard of Thanksgiving?
Yes.
This
Where
is
the
slightly
turkey
above that
disguises
movie for
himself as a
me,
human.
and I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, it is truly just barely above Thanksgiving, both in the writing and the execution of the movie. You know, but I will give Alfred's performance a 10 out of 10.
This is the thing. There's pros and cons to everything. Honestly, one of the biggest pros to me is the fact that Tim Burton did this movie. It's crazy that Michael Keaton, like, this is the guy that a lot of people revere as like their favorite Batman. They want him back for anything they can get him back within that freaking suit. I almost cursed, but like, they want Michael Keaton. There's people who really adored him as whatever. Me, it doesn't hold as dear of us. I'm a Christian Bale guy. I'm not gonna lie. But you know, we did have the podcast in the past where we talked about, you know, the top 5 Batman or whatever. You know, going through it, Michael Keaton, I know I was expecting him to do better on that list than he did, but I do know a lot of people think very highly of him. But you've got the Tim Burton, you've got the Michael Keaton, you've got the Danny DeVito, which, you know, like I said, was memorable to me, and it has stuck with me. I turned 30 3 days ago, and it is still here, just imprinted in my brain. The fact that all that goes around, this movie is not that good of a movie. Like, it does in today's day and age. When I watch it, I'm like, man, this is not that entertaining overall, but like, I'm having to pay attention to it. So here I do have these positive things to say about it, because these are all true. Like, dang, somebody could tell you, hey, you really need to go back and watch Batman Returns. Like, why? It probably blows. And it's like, well, check it out if you like Tim Burton, because of the fact that it's like a real life movie, and it's not like I don't know if it's called claymation or whatever it is, those kind of movies. I know he's done other movies, but it's just one of those things. Like, I would have not known, had I not have dug a little deeper, that Tim Burton even did those movies. Like, I heard about, like, I've talked about this and discovered this information probably like a year or two ago, but still, the fact that it took me that long to understand, and Tim Burton is a renowned guy. It's like Quentin Tarantino, the way that he kind of has his own brush of the pen.
I think you guys should go through and all rate Danny DeVito's performance.
I give the movie a 4.5. By the
This
way,
guy's gonna get a hate letter from Danny DeVito.
Okay, let's do that. That'll be fun. Let's rate Danny DeVito's performance. I'll start. I think it was at 7.5.
That was 6. I give it a 6. He had to be over the top. That's what it was. Like,
Yeah, that's what the movie called for. That's
Yeah.
what the era called for.
Legitimately, if it was an actor playing a corpse in a coffin, I would give that a 0. So I literally, it's a 1 for me. It's a 1.
I thought he was going negative.
I'm not gonna go negative.
Like negative
I mean,
points.
for what he was doing. Okay, let me backtrack.
Why are we harping so much on Danny DeVito? What you guys saying?
it's important. The people care. I'm telling you. Listen, I mean, if it really all depends, you know, something in the, you know, the types of conversations that I have, we like to use our brains and be like, you know, man, just because it's bad to you doesn't mean it's bad to everyone. I was petrified. It is a good thing. It left a mark to petrify me by Danny DeVito's performance and his imagery and all this other good stuff. Really, honestly, I don't want to give him a 10, but I don't want to give him a 1. I am going to just have to give Danny DeVito overall, because, you know, we blame the writing all the time. So Danny DeVito as the Penguin potentially could have even been better. So his performance, in my opinion, I'm going to have to give him a 6.5.
As memorable as he was, you still ain't giving him above a 8.
No, because
You're still not singing his praise. Y'all know it wasn't that good.
it was long enough ago. I might have pooped my pants after seeing this guy. It's
I'm not
possible.
trying to say that he's up there in the Heath Ledger territory, but I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's something that made an impression on audiences, whether or not you love it or not.
Can you imagine if
Kind
Tim
of like Two
Burton
Girls, One Cup.
did like an animated style, kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas or something of this movie? How over the top it would have been
Yeah,
if they just had him voiceover. Like, think about that.
that would be
Yeah.
crazy.
And potentially more entertaining. Potentially. I mean,
Well, hey, wasn't the penguin in the new movie?
Yeah.
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 That's played by Colin Farrell with lots and lots of makeup on.
you got me on here reviewing this movie from like the 90s.
I was
Yeah.
surprised.
Like you were on that one, Luke.
For Spider-Man, that was a brand new film when we reviewed it.
Yeah, I know. But I love that man. Anyway, okay. Sorry, digress.
With all that being said, before we leave, Mr. Shane, why don't you tell us about your podcast that we can find on Spotify?
Yeah, you can find it in just about everywhere that podcasts get uploaded. Probably not everywhere, but there's like 7 or 8 different places, big platforms. Organic Poison Podcast, you can just Google it if you really want to. We just hit episode 100, and that's awesome. Really excited to be able to reach that milestone. I have a lot of fun on that show, talking with my friends and people, artists, and I would love to say that I interview artists, but I'm pretty good at derailing the conversation. So, we just talk about whatever, and it's fun. I almost look at it as therapy, because prices for therapy are just so high.
Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram and TikTok. You can find us there with the handle @RealComicBookCinema. And also you can find us on Facebook. Until next time, have a good one.
Now that we're off the air, can I ask Luke, how does he feel about the petition to get Danny DeVito to play Wolverine?
After that, you're like, oh, wow.
Nice. I love it.
I'm Jen. Hi. Okay, let's see. What I'd like to do first is to put these little glove thingies on you. Our research tells us that voters like fingers. So if we want to just